The sun rises a little more. It does not rush into the sky. It moves in a slow, quiet way, as if it has all the time it needs. The light spreads across the market space, touching each object with a soft warmth. The clay jars seem to hold that light gently. The baskets show their woven patterns more clearly now. The ground, once dim and gray, becomes a muted shade of brown and gold. People continue to arrive. Their footsteps blend into a steady rhythm. Sandals press into the earth, lifting small clouds of dust that settle almost immediately. No one speaks loudly. Voices remain low, like the hum of something distant and constant. A man with a narrow frame walks in from the direction of the fields. Over his shoulder hangs a simple wooden pole. On each end of the pole, a basket is tied. They sway slightly as he walks, balanced with care. Inside them are vegetables, long green stalks, small round roots, and a few pale bulbs still dusted with soil. He finds a place near the edge of the market. He lowers the pole slowly, then unties one basket. He does not empty it all at once. Instead, he takes out each item and places it on a cloth, arranging them in small, neat groups. The green stalks lie together, the round roots form a loose circle, and the bulbs are set to one side. He pauses after each movement. His hands rest on his knees for a moment, as if the act of placing each item deserves its own small silence. Nearby, a woman adjusts the position of her bread again. She turns one loaf slightly, then another. The changes are small. Most would not notice them. But she does, and that is enough. Her attention is quiet and steady. She does not look around often. Her focus remains on what is in front of her. A child passes behind her. He walks slowly, his gaze moving from one display to another. He does not ask for anything. He simply watches. His steps are careful, as though he understands that this place is not for running or noise. At the center of the market, a man begins to speak. His voice is soft, but it carries just enough to reach the person in front of him. He gestures toward a piece of cloth laid out on the ground. The cloth is woven with simple patterns, lines that cross and repeat in a quiet, steady way. The other man listens. He nods once, then looks down at the cloth. His fingers brush against it, testing its texture. The movement is slow, almost thoughtful. He does not rush to respond. The moment stretches gently between them. Finally, he offers something in return. It is a small object, wrapped in a piece of fabric. He unwraps it carefully, revealing what lies inside. The first man leans forward slightly, his eyes following the movement. There is no tension, no urgency. Only attention. They exchange a few more quiet words, then nod to one another. The trade is made. Each man takes what he has received and holds it for a moment, as if to understand its weight, its presence. Then they return to stillness. The market continues to grow. More mats appear on the ground. More goods are arranged. A woman arrives with a bundle of linen, folded into soft layers. She places it beside her and sits with her legs tucked beneath her. Her hands rest in her lap. She waits. Waiting is a large part of this place. It is not empty time. It is not wasted. It is simply part of the rhythm. People do not try to fill every moment. They allow time to move as it does, without pushing it forward. A faint sound comes from the direction of the river. It is the soft splash of water against the shore. Perhaps a small boat has shifted, or someone has stepped into the shallows. The sound reaches the market in a quiet way, blending into the background of everything else. The air begins to warm. The coolness of early morning fades slowly. The warmth is gentle, not harsh. It settles on the skin, on the surfaces of objects, on the ground itself. Shadows shorten a little more, becoming less defined. A man with darker hands, marked by work, sits beside a row of tools. They are simple tools, wooden handles, stone edges, pieces shaped for use rather than beauty. He does not call attention to them. He simply sits, his posture relaxed, his gaze calm. From time to time, someone stops to look. They pick up a tool, turn it in their hand, feel its balance. The man watches, but he does not interrupt. If a question is asked, he answers in a low voice. If not, he remains silent. The exchange of goods continues, slow and steady. There is no clear beginning or end to each interaction. They flow into one another, like the movement of the river nearby. One trade finishes, another begins. Some people leave. Others arrive. The balance is always shifting, but never abruptly. A group of 3 women stand together near the herbs. They speak softly, their voices blending into a single quiet sound. One of them picks up a bundle, brings it close to her face, and inhales gently. She nods, then passes it to the next woman. The action repeats, each movement unhurried. They choose what they need. Not more, not less. A man passes through the market carrying nothing. He does not stop at any of the mats. He walks slowly, his eyes moving across the space, taking in what is there. Perhaps he is not here to trade. Perhaps he is simply here to be present, to see, to understand. He pauses for a moment near the center. Then he continues on, leaving the market as quietly as he entered. The sun climbs higher. The light becomes stronger, but it does not disturb the calm. The pace remains the same. The voices do not rise. The movements do not quicken. Everything continues as it has. In one corner, a small disagreement forms. It is not loud. It is not sharp. 2 people speak with slightly firmer tones, their words still controlled, still measured. They gesture lightly, pointing to an item, then to another. Their expressions remain calm, though a trace of concern passes between them. After a few moments, the tension fades. One of them adjusts their offer. The other considers it, then nods. The exchange is completed. The moment passes, leaving no lasting mark. The market absorbs it, as it absorbs everything. A bird lands near the edge of the space. It hops once, then again, pecking lightly at the ground. No one pays it much attention. It is simply another presence, another small movement within the larger stillness. The child from earlier sits now beside a stack of baskets. He traces the pattern of the weaving with his finger, following the lines as they cross and return. His breathing is slow. His eyes are half-focused, drifting between the basket and the space around him. Time continues. It does not announce itself. It does not demand notice. It simply moves forward, carrying the market with it. And as the morning settles fully into day, the quiet life of the market remains unchanged. Soft. Steady. Endless in its gentle rhythm, the light now rests fully across the market. It no longer shifts in uncertain tones. It has found its place. It spreads evenly over the ground, over the cloths, over the quiet faces of those who sit and wait. The warmth deepens, but still remains gentle, like a hand placed softly on the shoulder. Nothing changes quickly. A man who arrived early now shifts his position slightly. He stretches one leg, then the other, easing the stillness from his body. His movements are slow and careful, as though even this small adjustment belongs to the calm rhythm of the place. He looks at the jars beside him. For a moment, he simply observes them. The way the light touches their curved sides. The faint lines left by his hands when they were shaped. Each jar is similar, yet not exactly the same. He seems to recognize this without needing to think about it. Nearby, the woman with the bread has fewer loaves now. The empty spaces between them have grown wider. She does not appear hurried by this. She rearranges what remains, closing the gaps slightly, bringing the loaves closer together. Her hands move in the same slow, thoughtful way as before. A new scent drifts through the air. It is faint at first, then becomes clearer. Someone has brought fresh fruit. Small, round, and soft, they are placed in a shallow basket lined with leaves. Their color is warm, a muted shade that blends easily into the tones of the market, yet still stands out in a quiet way. A few people turn their heads. Not all at once, not with sudden interest, but with a gradual awareness. The scent reaches them, and they respond in small, almost unnoticeable ways. A slight shift in posture. A glance in that direction. The person who brought the fruit sits behind the basket. They do not call attention to it. They simply wait, allowing the presence of the fruit to speak for itself. The leaves beneath it hold a bit of moisture, keeping the surface cool. A drop of water forms on one edge and slowly falls to the ground. The sound is too soft to hear. And yet, it happens. At the edge of the market, the man with the vegetables begins a quiet exchange. A woman stands before him, looking down at the small groups he has arranged. She points gently to one of the round roots. He nods once, then gestures to another item beside it. She considers both, her gaze moving slowly between them. There is a pause. Then she reaches into a small pouch at her side and brings out something wrapped in cloth. She unwraps it just enough to reveal its contents. The man leans forward slightly, his eyes steady. They speak in low voices. Their words do not carry beyond the space between them. The conversation is not rushed. It moves at the same pace as everything else here, measured, calm, without pressure. After a time, they come to an understanding. The exchange is made. The woman gathers the items she has chosen and places them carefully into her own basket. The man adjusts what remains, restoring the quiet order of his display. Nothing feels lost. Nothing feels gained. Only changed. The breeze returns for a moment. It moves lightly across the market, lifting the edge of a linen cloth, stirring a few strands of loose fiber, brushing against the surface of the fruit. It passes through without lingering, leaving the air just as it was before. A group of men sit together near the center. They are not trading at the moment. They are simply resting. Their hands lie still on their knees or at their sides. One of them traces a line in the dust with a small stick, not forming any clear shape, just moving it slowly back and forth. Their conversation is quiet. At times, it fades completely, replaced by silence. Then, after a while, a few words return. There is no need to fill every moment. The silence itself is part of their presence together. Across the market, a young girl helps arrange a set of small clay bowls. She places them one by one in a neat row. Each bowl is slightly different in size. She adjusts their spacing, moving one a little closer, another a little farther away. Her movements are careful, almost deliberate in their softness. An older woman watches her. There is no instruction given, no correction. Only a quiet observation. When the girl finishes, she sits back and looks at what she has done. The older woman nods once, slowly. That is enough. The market continues to breathe in its own steady way. People come and go, but never in a rush. A man leaves carrying a bundle tied with cord. A woman arrives with a small jar held close to her side. Their paths cross without interruption, each moving within the shared space with ease. The sun rises a little higher still. The warmth deepens, settling into the ground. The dust feels softer underfoot. Shadows grow shorter, drawing closer to the objects that cast them. A man approaches the tools. He picks one up, a simple blade set into a wooden handle. He turns it in his hand, testing its weight. His fingers move along the edge, not touching it directly, but feeling its presence. The man who owns the tools watches quietly. He does not speak until the other man looks up. When he does, his voice is low and even. They exchange a few words, nothing more. The meaning passes easily between them. After a time, the tool is set back down. No exchange is made. There is no disappointment. The moment simply passes, like a breath taken and released. Near the fruit, a woman chooses carefully. She does not take the first one she sees. She looks at several, lifting each one gently, feeling its weight, its softness. Her fingers move slowly, as though each touch matters. She selects one. Then another. She places them into her basket with care, as if they are something delicate, something to be preserved. The person behind the basket watches, then nods slightly. The exchange follows, quiet and balanced. The child who sat by the baskets now stands. He walks slowly toward the center of the market. His steps are small, his attention moving from one scene to another. He pauses near the group of men, watching the line being drawn in the dust. For a moment, he does nothing. Then he crouches down and traces his own line beside it. It is uneven, wandering slightly, but he does not correct it. He simply follows the movement of his hand, letting it go where it will. One of the men notices. He smiles faintly, though the expression is soft, almost hidden. He does not speak. He allows the child to continue. The lines remain on the ground, crossing and overlapping. They do not mean anything. And yet, they exist. The market holds all of this without change. It does not react. It does not shift in response. It simply continues, steady and calm, as it has since the morning began. And as the day grows fuller, the quiet rhythm remains unbroken. The day settles more deeply into itself. The sun now stands higher, no longer near the horizon. Its light is fuller, yet still soft enough to rest gently on the earth. The warmth gathers slowly in the ground, rising faintly into the air. It does not press or overwhelm. It simply remains. The market continues as it has. There is no clear moment when it becomes busy. There is no sudden shift. Instead, it holds a steady presence, like the quiet movement of water that never stops, yet never rushes. A man who had been sitting for a long time now stands. He does so carefully, placing one hand on his knee for support. His body adjusts slowly, as though rising is something to be done with patience. Once upright, he looks around the market, not searching for anything in particular, just observing. He takes a few steps forward. His sandals press lightly into the dust. Each step leaves a mark that will not remain for long. The ground has seen many such marks before. It accepts them without notice. He stops near a mat where small items are laid out. They are simple things, pieces of string, small carved objects, bits of material that have been shaped by hand. He leans slightly, examining them without touching at first. His eyes move from one to another, taking in their form, their texture. After a moment, he reaches down. He lifts one item, holding it between his fingers. He turns it slowly, as if feeling its balance, its quiet purpose. The person sitting behind the mat watches, but does not interrupt. There is no urgency in the moment. The man sets the item back down. He nods once, a small gesture, then steps away. Nothing more is needed. Nearby, the woman with the linen shifts her position. She adjusts the folds of the fabric, smoothing them with her hands. The cloth catches the light in soft patterns, showing faint lines where it has been folded and unfolded many times. She lifts one piece slightly, then lays it back down. Her movements are calm. She does not hurry, even though time has passed. There is no sense that anything must be done quickly. The day is long, and there is space within it. A faint sound rises from the far edge of the market. It is the quiet murmur of two people speaking, their voices low and steady. The sound does not travel far. It remains close to them, blending into the background like the rustle of cloth or the shifting of feet. A small shadow passes briefly over the ground. A bird moves overhead, unseen except for the shape it casts. The shadow glides across the market, touching jars, baskets, and hands, then disappears as quickly as it came. No one looks up. The moment passes without notice. The child who had been drawing in the dust now stands again. He brushes his hands together, letting the fine particles fall away. He looks at the lines he has made, then at the others around them. There is no clear pattern, no meaning to hold on to. Still, he watches them for a moment longer. Then he steps away. The lines remain, faint and fragile. With time, they will fade, blending back into the surface of the ground. At the center of the market, a new exchange begins. A man carrying a small bundle approaches another who sits beside a collection of jars. He kneels slowly, placing the bundle in front of him. The cloth around it is worn, its edges soft from use. He unwraps it with care. Inside are small pieces of something dark and solid. They are not uniform in shape. Each one is slightly different, as though formed without strict measure. The man beside the jars leans forward, his gaze steady. He reaches out and touches one of the pieces. His fingers move over its surface, feeling its texture. He does not speak immediately. The moment stretches, quiet and unbroken. Finally, he nods. A few soft words are exchanged. The meaning passes between them without difficulty. The trade is made, and the items change hands. The cloth is folded again, the bundle reformed, now holding something different. Nothing is lost. Nothing is gained. Only changed, once more. The breeze returns again, a little warmer now. It moves through the market with a gentle touch, stirring the edges of things. A corner of a mat lifts slightly, then settles. A strand of hair shifts across a face, then falls back into place. The air remains calm. The group of men near the center has grown quieter. The stick that once traced lines in the dust now rests beside one of them. The lines themselves have begun to fade, softened by the movement of feet and the passing of time. They are still there, but less defined. One of the men leans back slightly, resting his weight on his hands. He looks toward the edge of the market, where people continue to arrive and leave. His gaze is steady, without focus on any one person. It is simply a way of being present. Across the space, the woman with the bread now has only a few loaves left. They sit close together on the cloth. She does not rearrange them this time. She lets them remain as they are. Her hands rest in her lap, her posture unchanged. A person approaches her. They look at the bread, then at her. A quiet exchange follows, much like the others. There is a brief pause, a moment of stillness, then the trade is made. One loaf is taken. Two remain. The rhythm continues. A man carrying water passes through the market. The container rests against his side, its surface damp from the coolness within. A small drop forms near its edge and falls, darkening the dust where it lands. He walks carefully, not spilling, not hurrying. He does not stop. He moves through the space and out again, his presence brief, yet part of the whole. The sun shifts slightly. Its position changes, though slowly enough that it is almost unnoticed. The light moves across the ground, altering the shape of shadows, softening some, deepening others. Time continues forward. There is no need to mark it. The market feels the same, yet it is always changing in small, quiet ways. A woman with herbs gathers what remains of her bundles. She ties them again, adjusting the cords with steady hands. Not all have been taken, but she does not seem concerned. She arranges them as they were before, maintaining their simple order. A man pauses near her, then moves on. No words are exchanged. The moment exists, then passes. The child returns to the baskets once more. He sits beside them, leaning slightly against their woven sides. His eyes grow softer, his movements slower. The warmth of the day settles around him, and for a moment, he becomes very still. The market does not notice. Or perhaps it does, in its own quiet way. The sounds remain gentle. The movements remain slow. And as the day continues to unfold, nothing disturbs the calm that has been there since the beginning. It holds steady. It remains. And it continues. The sun begins a slow, almost unnoticeable shift. It no longer rises. Instead, it lingers in the wide sky, holding its place with quiet certainty. The warmth deepens, though gently, as if the day is settling into a long breath that will not be rushed. The market remains steady. There is no clear boundary between one moment and the next. The space feels continuous, as though it has always been this way and will remain so without effort. A man who had been walking earlier now finds a place to sit. He lowers himself beside a mat that holds a few remaining goods. Not his own, but he sits nearby, as if the space allows for such quiet sharing. He rests his hands on the ground behind him, leaning back slightly. His eyes move slowly across the market, taking in what is left, what has changed, what remains. He does not speak. Not everything requires words. Nearby, a woman gathers the last of her bread. Only one loaf remains now. She lifts it gently, brushing away a small trace of dust that has settled along its edge. For a moment, she holds it in both hands, as if considering something that cannot be seen. Then she wraps it in cloth. The space before her becomes empty. She folds the cloth that once held the loaves and places it beside her. Her hands pause, resting lightly on her knees. She waits. Not for anything in particular, but simply because waiting is part of the day. A faint sound comes from beyond the market. It is the distant movement of water again, softer now, almost hidden beneath the stillness of the air. The river continues its path, as it always has, unseen but present. A young man approaches the tools once more. He is not the same as before. His steps are slower, as though the warmth of the day has settled into his limbs. He kneels carefully, looking over the items laid out before him. He does not pick anything up at first. He simply observes. His gaze moves from one tool to another, following their shapes, their edges, the way they rest against the cloth. After some time, he reaches out and lifts one. His fingers close around the handle, testing its weight. The man who owns the tools watches quietly. Their eyes meet for a brief moment. A few words are spoken, low and even. The exchange is simple, without tension. After a pause, the young man nods. The tool is not returned this time. It is placed beside him, as something now his to carry. He offers something in return, small and wrapped. The balance is restored, quietly, without ceremony. He rises and leaves, holding the tool at his side. The space he occupied becomes empty again, but only for a moment. Soon, another presence fills it, as naturally as before. Across the market, the fruit basket has grown lighter. Only a few pieces remain, resting on the leaves that have begun to dry at the edges. Their color has softened under the sun. A faint sweetness lingers in the air around them. A woman approaches, her steps slow. She kneels, reaching out to touch one of the fruits. Her fingers press gently against its surface. She waits, feeling its firmness, its quiet ripeness. Then she lifts it, bringing it closer. She chooses carefully. Not quickly, not without thought. She takes one, then after a pause, another. Each movement is deliberate. The person behind the basket watches with calm attention. The exchange follows, as all others have. Simple. Balanced. Complete. The breeze passes again, though lighter now. It moves just enough to stir the edges of things. A piece of linen shifts. A loose strand of woven fiber lifts, then settles. The air remains warm, holding the scent of earth, of food, of quiet labor. The group of men near the center has grown smaller. One has left, rising without announcement, stepping away as naturally as he once arrived. The others remain, though their conversation has faded into longer stretches of silence. One of them closes his eyes for a moment. Not in sleep, but in rest. His breathing slows. His body remains still. The world around him continues without interruption. Nearby, the lines drawn in the dust have nearly disappeared. Only faint traces remain, softened by time and movement. A passing foot brushes across them, and what was once visible becomes part of the ground again. Nothing is held in place for long. And yet, nothing feels lost. A man carrying a small jar stops near the center. He looks around, as if deciding where to go, though there is no urgency in his choice. After a moment, he kneels beside an open space and sets the jar down. He removes its lid. Inside is something unseen, but its scent is faintly noticeable. It drifts outward, blending with the other smells of the market. He does not call attention to it. He simply waits. Someone will notice. Or perhaps not. Either way, the moment remains. At the edge of the market, the child who had been sitting by the baskets now leans back against them. His movements are slower now. The warmth of the day has softened his energy. His eyes drift, half-focused, as he watches the quiet patterns of movement around him. A woman passes by, her shadow crossing over him briefly. He does not react. The shadow moves on, leaving the light unchanged. Time continues. It stretches gently across the day, unbroken, without sharp edges. The market does not measure it. It simply moves within it, steady and calm. A woman with linen begins to gather her things. She folds each piece carefully, smoothing the fabric before placing it into a bundle. Her hands move with the same quiet attention as before. Nothing is rushed. Each fold is given its own small moment. When she finishes, she ties the bundle with a simple cord. She does not leave immediately. Instead, she sits for a while longer, her hands resting lightly on the fabric, as if allowing the moment to settle. The market begins, in small and almost invisible ways, to thin. Not all at once. Not suddenly. But gradually. A space opens here, then another there. A mat is folded. A basket is lifted. A person stands, then walks away, their footsteps soft against the earth. Still, many remain. The rhythm continues, even as it shifts. A man who had been watching from the edge now steps forward. He pauses near the center, looking at what is left. His gaze moves slowly, not searching for anything in particular, just observing the quiet changes. He kneels. He places something on the ground before him. And once again, without announcement, without noise, another small part of the market begins. The day leans gently toward its later hours. The sun remains high, but its presence has begun to soften in a way that is felt more than seen. The light is still warm, still steady, yet it carries a faint hint of change, as though it already knows it will not stay where it is. The market breathes in this quiet awareness. Spaces that were once filled are now open. The ground shows faint outlines where mats had rested, where baskets had pressed into the dust. These marks remain for a while, then begin to fade, slowly returning to the even surface they once were. A man who had just arrived sits beside his small offering. It is modest. A few items, carefully placed. He does not seem concerned that the market is no longer as full as it was. He settles into his place with the same calm as those who arrived at the beginning of the day. He rests his hands on his knees. He waits. Waiting does not change as the day moves forward. It remains the same quiet act, steady and without strain. Nearby, the woman who had gathered her linen now stands. She lifts her bundle, holding it close against her side. For a moment, she looks across the market, her gaze passing over the remaining people, the scattered goods, the spaces in between. Then she begins to walk. Her steps are slow, her path unhurried. She moves toward the edge of the market, where the ground becomes less worn, less marked by the presence of many feet. When she reaches it, she does not look back. She simply continues. Her figure becomes smaller as she moves away, then blends into the quiet distance beyond. The market remains. It does not feel emptier, only different. A man with a narrow frame, who had arrived earlier with vegetables, now gathers what is left. There are fewer items now. The small round roots are gone. Only a few green stalks remain, their edges slightly softened by the warmth of the day. He lifts them one by one, placing them back into his basket. He works slowly. Each movement is given the same care as when he first arranged them. There is no sense of ending, only a continuation of the same rhythm. Once the basket is filled, he ties it securely. He lifts the wooden pole, balancing the baskets on either side once more. Before he stands, he pauses, his hands resting lightly on the pole, his body still. Then he rises. He steps away from the place where he had been sitting for so long. The ground beneath him shows the faint impression of his presence, already beginning to soften. He walks toward the path that leads back to the fields. His figure moves steadily, without hurry, until he, too, becomes part of the distance. A faint quiet settles over the center of the market. Not silence, but something close to it. The low voices are fewer now. The small movements are more spaced, leaving longer moments in between. A man sits beside a nearly empty mat. Only one item remains before him. It is small, simple, easily overlooked. He does not move to pack it away yet. He sits, watching, as if the presence of that single item still holds meaning. A passerby pauses. They look down at the item, then at the men. A few quiet words are spoken. The exchange is brief, almost weightless. The item is taken. The mat becomes empty. The man looks at the space where it had been. His gaze rests there for a moment, then he begins to fold the cloth beneath it. His hands move slowly, smoothing each corner, pressing out the faint lines left by the object. When he finishes, he places the folded cloth beside him. He does not leave immediately. He sits for a while longer, as if allowing the absence to settle into place. The fruit basket now holds nothing. Only the leaves remain, their edges dry, their color slightly faded. The person behind it gathers them gently, stacking them together before tying them into a small bundle. The basket itself is lifted, turned slightly, checked for anything left behind. There is nothing. It is placed against the person's side, ready to be carried. They stand. They pause. Then they walk away, their steps as quiet as when they arrived. The breeze returns once more. It moves lightly across the open spaces, where fewer objects now stand in its path. It touches the ground, lifting a thin layer of dust that drifts for a moment before settling again. The air feels wider, more open. The group of men near the center has nearly dispersed. One remains seated, his posture relaxed, his gaze steady. The others have left, each in their own time, without announcement. The space they occupied feels unchanged, though it now holds only one. He reaches for the small stick that had once drawn lines in the dust. He turns it slowly in his fingers, then sets it down again. There is no need to draw anything more. The ground is already marked by the passing of the day. Nearby, the child rests quietly against the baskets. His eyes are heavy, his movements minimal. The warmth of the afternoon has settled into him, slowing his breath, softening his posture. He does not sleep, but he remains very still. A woman passes by and pauses near him. She looks down for a moment, then gently adjusts the position of one basket, making a small space for him to lean more comfortably. She does not speak. When she finishes, she continues on her way. The child remains. The market continues. Though it has thinned, though many have left, it does not feel like an ending. It feels like a quiet unfolding, a gradual easing of presence into absence. A man carrying water passes again. The container is lighter now. The dampness on its surface has lessened. He walks with the same steady steps, crossing the market without stopping. The sound of his movement is soft, almost lost in the stillness. The sun shifts again, just slightly. Its light begins to change in tone, though gently. The warmth remains, but there is a softness beginning to form, a subtle easing that hints at what will come later. The shadows grow a little longer. They stretch quietly across the ground, touching the edges of mats, the sides of baskets, the feet of those who remain. Time continues. It does not slow. It does not hurry. It simply moves, carrying the market with it, as it has from the beginning of the day. And in this slow passage, the quiet life of the market remains, soft, steady, and unbroken. The light begins to change in a way that feels almost like a quiet breath. It is still bright, still warm, but there is a softness now that was not there before. The edges of things appear less sharp. The ground, once glowing under the midday sun, now holds a gentler tone, as if it is slowly releasing the heat it gathered. The market remains, though it has grown quieter still. Fewer voices rise into the air. The spaces between people have widened. The steady rhythm continues, but with longer pauses, like a slow heartbeat that has found a deeper calm. A man who had stayed seated near the center now begins to gather his things. He moves without urgency, lifting each item and placing it into a small cloth. His hands are steady, familiar with the motions. He folds the cloth carefully, tying it with a simple knot. When he finishes, he rests his hands on the bundle for a moment. He does not stand right away. Instead, he looks across the market once more, as if taking in the quiet changes, the spaces that have opened, the few who remain. Then, slowly, he rises. His body shifts with care, adjusting to the movement. He lifts the bundle and places it over his shoulder. For a brief moment, he stands still, balanced between staying and leaving. Then he walks. His steps are soft, his path unhurried. He moves toward the same direction others have taken, where the market fades into the wider land. His presence becomes smaller, then disappears into the distance. The market holds what remains. A few mats still lie open. A few people still sit or stand, their attention resting on the quiet continuation of the day. The man with the nearly empty mat now folds it completely. He presses the last crease into place, smoothing the fabric with both hands. The motion is slow, almost deliberate, as though each fold carries a small sense of completion. He lifts the mat and tucks it under his arm. For a moment, he looks at the ground where it once lay. The space is bare now, showing only the faint impression left behind. Then he turns and walks away. The ground settles. A woman who had remained with her herbs now gathers the final bundle. She ties it with care, her fingers moving with quiet precision. The scent of the herbs lingers faintly in the air, though it is softer now, blending into the warmth of the afternoon. She lifts the bundle and holds it close. Before leaving, she pauses. Her gaze moves across the market, resting briefly on the few who remain. There is no clear expression, only a calm awareness of the moment. Then she walks away. Her steps are steady, her figure gradually fading into the distance, just as the others have. The breeze returns once more, carrying a slightly cooler touch. It moves through the open spaces, where fewer objects now stand. It brushes against the ground, lifting a thin layer of dust that drifts for a moment before settling again. The air feels lighter, less filled, and yet, still whole. The child remains near the baskets. He shifts slightly, adjusting his position. His eyes open a bit wider now, though his movements remain slow. He watches as another person nearby begins to gather their things. A woman lifts a small jar. She checks its contents, though there is little left inside. She places the lid back on and wraps the jar in a piece of cloth. Her hands move carefully, as they have throughout the day. She stands. For a moment, she looks down at the place where she had been sitting. The ground shows a faint mark, a slight change in color where the jar once rested. Then she steps away. The space becomes empty again. The market continues to thin, though it does not feel as if it is ending. It feels more like a quiet release. A man walks through the center, carrying nothing. His path is slow, his gaze calm. He does not stop, does not linger. He simply passes through, as if following a path that has been taken many times before. His footsteps leave faint impressions that will soon fade. The sun lowers just slightly. Its movement is slow, almost imperceptible, yet it changes the feeling of the light. The warmth remains, but it is softer now, less direct, more spread across the space. Shadows stretch longer. They reach out across the ground, touching the edges of what remains. A basket, a mat, a pair of sandals, they all cast shapes that move quietly with the changing light. The man who had stayed near the tools now gathers them. He lifts each one, placing them together in a bundle. The wood and stone touch lightly, creating a soft, muted sound. He wraps them carefully, securing them with a cord. He pauses when he is done. His hands rest on the bundle for a moment, as though feeling its weight, its presence. Then he lifts it and stands. He does not rush to leave. He takes a few slow steps, then stops, looking back across the market. His gaze is steady, thoughtful, though quiet. After a moment, he continues. His figure moves toward the edge of the space, then beyond it, until he is no longer seen. The child watches him go. Then his gaze drifts again, settling on the empty spaces, the few remaining figures, the quiet patterns of the afternoon. The sounds are fewer now. A soft step. A piece of cloth being folded. The faint movement of the breeze. These small sounds remain, spaced further apart, surrounded by longer stretches of calm. The market feels as though it is gently exhaling. Letting go of the fullness it held earlier, releasing it slowly, without resistance. A final few exchanges take place. They are brief, quiet, almost unnoticed. A small item changes hands. A nod is given. A few soft words are spoken, then fade. Nothing lingers. Everything moves on. The ground becomes more visible now. The open spaces show the texture of the earth, the small marks, the subtle unevenness, the traces left behind by the many who have passed through. These traces will not remain for long. They will soften, blend, and disappear, just as they always have. The sun continues its slow descent. The light shifts further, taking on a warmer tone, though still gentle. The air begins to cool, though only slightly. The day is not over. But it is changing. And the market, which has moved through each moment without pause, now begins to rest in the quiet of what remains. The light grows warmer, though softer at the same time. It settles across the market in long, quiet layers, touching the ground at a lower angle now. The brightness of earlier hours has eased into something gentler, something that lingers rather than shines. The market is nearly empty. Only a few figures remain, scattered across the space that once held many. The ground feels wider now, more open, though it carries the quiet memory of everything that has passed through it. A man stands near the edge, holding a small bundle. He has not yet left, though there is little reason to stay. His gaze moves slowly across the market, resting on the empty spaces, the folded mats, the faint marks left behind. He shifts his weight slightly from one foot to the other. Then he begins to walk. His steps are unhurried, as they have been all day. The dust rises softly beneath his sandals, then settles again, as if nothing has disturbed it at all. He leaves the market without looking back. The space becomes quieter still. The child who had remained near the baskets now sits upright. He looks around, noticing how much has changed. The people who once filled the space are gone. The objects that once covered the ground have been gathered. What remains is simple, open, still. He places his hand on the woven surface beside him. The basket is firm, its pattern steady beneath his fingers. He traces the lines once more, slowly, following their path without thinking about where they lead. After a moment, he stands. His movements are gentle, careful. He brushes the dust from his hands, though only lightly. Then he takes a few small steps away from the baskets, pausing as if unsure where to go next. A woman approaches from a short distance. She does not speak at first. She simply reaches out and places a hand lightly on his shoulder. The touch is soft, steady, familiar. He looks up. She nods once, a small, quiet gesture. Together, they begin to walk. Their steps match in rhythm, slow and even. They move toward the edge of the market, where the ground becomes less worn, less marked by the passing of many feet. As they leave, their figures grow smaller. Then they, too, are gone. The market is left with only a few final traces. A single mat, half folded. A small mark in the dust where something once rested. A faint scent that lingers in the air, though it fades with each passing moment. The breeze moves through again. It is cooler now, carrying a softness that was not there before. It passes easily across the open space, no longer interrupted by rows of goods or clusters of people. It lifts a corner of the half-folded mat. The fabric shifts slightly, then settles back down. The sun lowers further. Its light stretches long across the ground, casting shadows that reach outward in quiet lines. These shadows move slowly, almost without being noticed, changing the shape of the space in small, gentle ways. A man returns briefly. He steps into the market, his movements calm and familiar. He looks around, as if searching for something he may have left behind. His gaze passes over the ground, the empty spaces, the few remaining objects. After a moment, he finds what he is looking for. It is small, nearly hidden against the earth. He bends down, picking it up with care. He holds it for a moment, then places it into a fold of cloth at his side. He stands again. There is no hurry in his departure. He takes a final look across the quiet market, then turns and walks away. Once he is gone, the space is still. No one remains. The market, which had slowly filled with life in the early morning, now rests in its quiet emptiness. The ground holds no movement, no voices, no exchanges. Only the memory of them. The air cools a little more. The warmth of the day begins to fade, though gently, without sudden change. The scents that once filled the space grow lighter, blending into the evening air. The half-folded mat lies untouched. For a while, it remains as it is, resting on the ground, its edges soft, its surface still. Then, with a final quiet motion, the breeze shifts it again. It folds slightly more, as if completing the action left unfinished. The light continues to soften. The colors of the market, earth, cloth, wood, take on deeper tones, touched by the warmth of the lowering sun. Shadows grow longer still, stretching beyond the space, reaching into the paths that lead away. Time moves forward, as it always has. The market does not resist it. It simply becomes part of it. A bird lands briefly at the center. It hops once, then again, pecking lightly at the ground. There is little left to find. After a moment, it lifts into the air and disappears into the wide sky above. The ground remains undisturbed. The faint lines, the soft impressions, the subtle marks left behind, all begin to fade. Soon, they will be gone. The space will return to what it was before the market began. Open. Quiet. Waiting. The sun nears the horizon. Its light grows softer still, almost golden now, resting gently across the land. The warmth lingers, though it no longer presses against the skin. It feels distant, calm, at ease. The market holds this final light without change. It does not gather. It does not move. It simply remains. And as the day begins to close, the quiet presence of the market fades into the stillness of evening. The sun lowers until it nearly touches the edge of the land. Its light spreads wide, softer now, stretching across the quiet ground where the market once moved with slow life. The warmth that filled the day begins to slip away, gently, without urgency. The space is still. No footsteps press into the earth. No voices drift through the air. The market, which had slowly unfolded with the morning, now rests in its absence. The half-folded mat lies where it was left. Its surface holds the last of the day's light. The fabric appears softer now, its edges less defined in the dimming glow. A faint shadow rests beneath it, long and thin, reaching outward across the ground. The breeze moves once more. It is cooler now. It carries with it the quiet feeling of evening, a softness that settles over the land. It brushes lightly against the mat, lifting its edge just enough to shift it a little more. Then it rests. The ground shows fewer marks now. What had once been clear, footprints, lines, impressions, has begun to fade. The dust has settled back into place. The surface returns to its natural stillness, as though the day has gently erased itself. A faint sound rises from the distance. It is the quiet movement of the river, steady and unchanged. It continues as it always has, beyond the market, beyond the paths, beyond the small moments of trade and gathering. The sky begins to change. The soft gold of the sun deepens into a warmer tone, then slowly into something more muted. The colors shift without sharp edges, blending into one another in a calm, steady way. A bird crosses overhead. Its wings move slowly, its path smooth against the fading light. It does not linger. It passes quietly from one side of the sky to the other, then disappears into the distance. The market remains empty. And yet, it does not feel abandoned. It feels complete. The place where the fruit basket once rested is now just a patch of ground, slightly darker than the rest. The spot where the jars had stood holds no trace of their shape, only the faint memory of their presence. These small signs will fade completely with time. Nothing remains for long. And still, everything returns again. The light continues to soften. The sun slips lower, its edge now touching the horizon. The warmth of its glow spreads outward, casting long, quiet shadows that stretch across the open space. The half-folded mat no longer moves. It rests fully now, its final shape settled. There is no one to lift it, no hands to gather it. It remains as it is, part of the stillness. The air cools further. It moves gently across the ground, carrying the last traces of the day's warmth away. The scents that once filled the market, bread, herbs, earth, have faded into something faint, almost unnoticeable. The silence deepens. Not empty, but full in its own quiet way. A small sound breaks it for a moment. Somewhere beyond the market, a distant step, or perhaps the movement of an animal, touches the edge of hearing. It does not come closer. It remains far away, then fades again into stillness. The sky grows dimmer. The soft light of the sun gives way to the quiet tones of evening. The colors fade, becoming cooler, more subdued. The shapes of things remain, but their edges soften into the gathering dusk. The ground holds its calm. The marks of the day are nearly gone now. Only the faintest traces remain, and even those will soon disappear. The market space returns to what it has always been beneath everything. A place of earth. A place of quiet. A place that waits without needing to. The sun slips fully below the horizon. Its light lingers for a moment longer, a soft glow that rests along the edge of the sky. Then it fades, slowly, leaving behind the gentle dimness of evening. The first hint of night begins to form. The air cools further, settling into a calm that feels deeper, more still. The breeze moves less now, as though even it is resting. The half-folded mat is barely visible. Its shape blends into the ground, its presence quiet, almost hidden. It no longer draws attention. It simply remains, like everything else. A faint star appears above. Small. Distant. Steady. Then another. The sky begins to fill, slowly, with these quiet points of light. They do not rush. They appear one by one, each holding its place without movement. The market, now fully at rest, holds the silence of night. There are no footsteps. No voices. No exchanges. Only the quiet presence of the space itself. Time continues. It moves through the evening just as it moved through the morning and the day. It does not stop. It does not change its pace. It simply carries everything forward. The ground cools beneath the open sky. The air settles. The stillness deepens. And in that stillness, the memory of the market remains, not as sound or movement, but as something softer, something that rests quietly beneath the surface of the night. Night arrives without announcement. It does not begin at a single moment. It gathers slowly, deepening the dimness, softening the last traces of light until they fade completely. The sky stretches wide above the silent market, now filled with scattered stars that hold steady in their distant places. The ground rests. Where the market once moved with quiet life, there is now only stillness. The earth has cooled, releasing the warmth it carried through the day. The dust lies undisturbed, smooth and even, as though nothing had passed over it. The half-folded mat remains. It is barely visible now, its shape blending into the darkened ground. Only a faint outline can be seen where it rests, still and unchanged. No breeze moves it. No hand comes to gather it. It simply stays. The air is calm. It holds a coolness that settles gently across the open space. There is no sharpness in it, only a quiet shift from what the day had been. The scents of the market are gone now, replaced by the faint, neutral smell of earth and night. A distant sound rises, then fades. Perhaps the soft call of an animal far from the market. Perhaps the quiet movement of water along the river's edge. It does not come close. It does not disturb the stillness. It passes, leaving the silence whole again. The stars above remain steady. They do not flicker in any noticeable way. They rest in place, small points of light that seem unchanged by the passing of time. Their presence is quiet, distant, yet constant. The market holds this quiet without resistance. It does not feel empty. It feels at rest. The places where people once sat are now only slight variations in the ground. A faint dip here, a subtle mark there. These small differences are almost gone, blending back into the natural surface. Nothing is held for long. Everything returns. A faint breeze moves across the land. It is lighter than before, barely touching the ground. It passes over the mat, over the spaces where baskets and jars once stood, over the paths that lead away into the distance. It leaves nothing changed. The night deepens. The sky grows darker, though the stars remain. Their light seems clearer now against the deeper shade. They continue to hold their places, unmoving, quiet. Time moves on. It does not pause for the stillness. It carries the night forward just as it carried the day. There is no difference in its motion, only in what it holds. The ground cools further. The air becomes more still. Even the faint sounds of the distance grow fewer, spaced further apart, until they nearly disappear. The market is now only a place. No longer a gathering. No longer a space of exchange. Just earth beneath the sky. And yet, beneath that stillness, something remains. Not sound. Not movement. But a quiet memory of the day. The slow arrival of people in the morning. The careful placement of goods. The soft exchanges, the steady rhythm, the gentle presence of many lives moving together without haste. All of it rests here, unseen. Not held in objects, not marked in clear lines, but present in a way that does not need to be seen. The half-folded mat shifts slightly. Not from a strong breeze, but from the smallest movement of air. Its edge lifts, then settles again, as if adjusting itself into a final resting place. Then it becomes still once more. The stars continue their quiet watch. They do not change. They do not move in any way that can be seen. They simply remain. A soft sound returns briefly. A distant footstep, perhaps, far from the market. Or the quiet movement of something unseen in the dark. It does not come closer. It does not stay. It fades. The silence returns, deeper than before. The night stretches on. It does not feel long. It does not feel short. It simply is. The market rests within it, unchanged, unmoving, quiet. And slowly, almost without notice, the night continues to carry everything forward, toward a time that has not yet arrived. The night settles more deeply now. It is no longer just the absence of day. It has become its own presence, wide and steady, stretching across the land like a quiet covering. The sky above holds its stars with patient stillness, each one distant, each one unchanged. The market remains silent. There is no movement left within it. No sign of gathering or departure. Only the space itself, resting where so many small moments once unfolded. The ground is cool now. It holds the memory of warmth only in a faint, fading way. The dust has fully settled. Nothing rises from it anymore. It lies evenly across the surface, soft and undisturbed. The half-folded mat is nearly indistinguishable from the earth. Only a slight difference in tone marks where it rests. Even that will fade with time, as all things here do. It does not resist the night. It simply remains until it becomes part of it. A very distant sound passes through the air. So faint it is almost not there at all. Perhaps it is wind moving through far-off trees. Perhaps it is water shifting along the riverbank. It does not carry meaning. It does not ask to be noticed. It comes and goes. The silence afterward feels unchanged. Above, the stars hold their steady positions. There is no urgency in them. No movement that can be felt from below. They remain like quiet points of thought scattered across a vast, dark sky. The market below feels smaller now. Not physically, but in presence. As if everything within it has softened into the ground itself, blending into the land that holds it. The idea of the market still exists, but only in a gentle, fading way. The breeze returns again. It is cooler now, carrying the deep calm of the night. It moves slowly across the open space, touching nothing firmly, passing over everything without disruption. It does not lift dust anymore. There is nothing left to lift. It moves on. The ground responds only by being still. A faint sense of openness grows. The emptiness is not new, but it becomes more noticeable now that the day is fully gone. The space feels wide, uninterrupted, as though it has always been this way. The memory of movement is there, but quiet. Not in sound. Not in sight. Only in the way the space feels different from complete emptiness. The market holds that difference gently. The sky darkens further in subtle layers. Even the stars seem more distinct now, as the surrounding darkness deepens. They do not change, yet they appear clearer against the expanding night. Time continues without marking itself. There are no signals here. No sounds of beginning or ending. Only the slow passing of night, steady and unbroken. The mat shifts one last time. So slightly it is almost not movement at all. Then it settles. And remains. Nothing follows. The air becomes still again. Even the breeze pauses for a moment, as if resting along with the land. The silence is complete, but not heavy. It feels natural. Expected, even. As though everything has returned to a state it always knew. The market is no longer a place of activity. It is a place of rest. The kind that does not end, but simply continues until something new arrives. The stars remain above, unchanged. The earth remains below, quiet and steady. And between them, the empty market rests in its final stillness of the night. The night does not change quickly. It holds its shape with patience, stretching across the land in a calm, steady way. The market remains beneath it, unchanged, resting in a silence that feels complete. The stars are still present. They do not shift. They do not fade. They simply remain where they have always been, distant and quiet, watching without intention. The ground below is fully at rest now. There are no faint disturbances left. No remaining impressions that can be seen clearly. Even the idea of movement feels far away, as if it belonged to another time entirely. The air is cool, but gentle. It does not press. It does not pull. It simply exists around the space, filling it without effort. The half-folded mat is now only a part of the ground itself. Not separate. Not distinct. Just another quiet piece of the earth, resting under the night sky. Time continues forward, though nothing marks its passage. There is no sound to measure it. No light to show it. Only the slow, unseen movement of hours passing over a silent place. A faint breeze returns. It is softer than before, moving almost like a thought rather than air. It passes over the empty market, over the places where people once stood, over the open spaces where goods once rested. It does not disturb anything. It simply moves through. Then it is gone again. The sky deepens further. Even the stars feel slightly more distant now, though they have not moved. The darkness around them grows richer, fuller, as the night reaches its quietest point. This is the still part of night. The moment where even silence feels still. The market remains unchanged. There is nothing to gather. Nothing to leave behind. It simply is. A distant sound appears again, very faint. It might be water. It might be wind. It might be something passing far beyond the reach of the market itself. It does not last long. It fades, leaving the silence untouched. The air becomes even calmer. As if the night itself has slowed, settling deeper into its own quiet rhythm. The ground holds its coolness evenly. No part of it feels different from another. Everything has returned to balance. Above, the stars continue their quiet presence. Below, the earth rests in stillness. Between them, the empty market becomes part of the night itself. There is no separation now. No distinction between space and silence. Only continuity. Time moves forward without notice. The hours pass gently, without sound or signal, carrying everything toward the first change that has not yet arrived. The edge of night begins to soften. Not noticeably. Not suddenly. But in a way that can only be felt, not seen. A slight easing of darkness. A faint suggestion that something will come, though it has not yet come. The market remains still. Nothing within it shifts. Nothing responds. It simply exists within this slow transition, as it always has, as it always will. The stars hold steady for a little longer. Then, almost imperceptibly, the darkness around them begins to thin. Not enough to call it morning. Not enough to call it change. Only enough to hint that night is not endless. The silence remains. But it feels slightly different now. Not broken. Just gently lighter. The ground below stays calm. The air remains still. And the empty market continues to rest in that quiet space between night and the first uncertain suggestion of dawn. The night grows thinner in a way that is almost impossible to notice at first. It does not change like a moment or a sound. It changes like breathing, so slow and natural that it is only felt after it has already begun. The sky remains dark, but not as deep as before. There is a faint shift in its weight, as though something distant is gently pressing upward from beneath the horizon. The stars still shine, but their contrast feels slightly less sharp against the sky around them. The market is still. It has not moved. It has not changed. It remains in the same quiet arrangement it settled into long ago, resting under the long stretch of night. The ground is cool and even. There are no longer any visible signs of the day that passed. Whatever was left behind has fully blended into the earth. The surface looks undisturbed, as if nothing had ever taken place there at all. And yet, the space is not empty in a simple way. It holds something subtle. A sense of what had been, not as detail, but as atmosphere. The breeze returns again. It is very light now, almost gentle enough to be mistaken for stillness itself. It moves across the open space without touching anything firmly. It passes over the ground, over the quiet places, over the soft darkness that remains. It does not linger. It never does. The stars begin to shift in feeling rather than position. They are still present, still steady, but the sky around them has begun to lighten in the faintest way. Not enough to dim their light, but enough to soften their contrast. The night is not ending. But it is loosening. The market remains unchanged. There is no movement, no sound, no return of life yet. Only the steady presence of the space itself, waiting in the calm that follows a long day. Time continues forward. It does not announce itself. It simply moves. A distant sound appears again, but even softer than before. It rises for a moment, then fades before it can form into anything clear. It feels far away, beyond the reach of the market, beyond the immediate land. The silence remains intact. But it feels slightly lighter now. Not broken. Just softened. The sky begins to show the first subtle suggestion of change. Not color. Not light. Only a very faint easing of darkness along one edge of the horizon, as if the night is slowly releasing its hold. The stars remain, but they feel more distant now. Not in position, but in presence. As though the sky itself is becoming wider around them. The ground below remains calm. No shift disturbs it. No sound moves across it. The market is still the market, but now it rests within a space that is slowly becoming something new. The air carries a gentle coolness. It does not change, but it feels slightly different, as if it is beginning to belong to both night and what comes after. The breeze passes again. It is almost invisible in its movement. It touches nothing. It changes nothing. It simply moves through and disappears. The sky continues its slow transition. Still dark. Still quiet. But no longer absolute. The market remains in that quiet in-between state, where nothing is happening, and yet something is slowly preparing to happen. No one is present. No one returns. The space holds its stillness fully. And in that stillness, the night and the coming dawn remain gently connected, balanced in a calm that does not break, only softens. The sky continues to soften, almost without permission from the night itself. There is still darkness, but it is no longer complete. It feels lighter in places, especially near the horizon, where the night seems to loosen its hold just a little more with each passing moment. The market remains silent. It has not changed its form. It has not shifted or stirred. It rests exactly as it was left, held in the quiet space between what was and what will come. The ground is still cool. It holds no warmth of the day anymore, only the steady calm of night that has lasted long enough to settle fully into the earth. There are no marks left that feel new. Even memory, in this place, feels softened, less like detail, more like atmosphere. The breeze returns again. It moves slowly across the open space, gentle and unhurried. It does not lift anything. It does not disturb anything. It simply passes through, like a quiet reminder that the world is still moving beyond what can be seen. The stars remain visible, but they feel slightly dimmer now. Not fading, not disappearing, only less sharp against the changing sky. The darkness around them has begun to thin, though so gradually that it feels more like a feeling than a visible change. The night is still here. But it is no longer alone. The horizon carries the first subtle suggestion of dawn. It is not color yet. Not light. Only a quiet easing of darkness, like the beginning of something that has not yet fully arrived. The market holds this transition without reaction. It does not respond. It does not shift. It simply remains part of the larger stillness that is slowly becoming different. Time moves forward again. Slow. Even. Unmarked. A distant sound appears once more, so faint it almost blends into the silence itself. It does not last. It fades before it can be fully recognized. The silence continues without interruption. The air feels slightly clearer now. Not brighter, not warmer, but more open, as if space itself is gently expanding. The ground remains unchanged. No movement touches it. No presence disturbs it. The market is still only a quiet outline of what once was, resting beneath a sky that is no longer fully night. The stars remain, but their presence feels more distant now. Not physically. Only in contrast, as the sky around them continues to soften. The horizon grows lighter in a slow, almost invisible way. It is not yet morning. But it is no longer pure night. The in-between deepens. A space that is neither one nor the other. A pause that feels longer than time itself, though it is only a quiet transition. The breeze returns again. Softer than before. It moves across the empty market like a final breath of night, passing over ground that remembers nothing and everything at once. It does not stay. It never does. The sky continues to change without urgency. Still dark above. Still steady. But gently loosening along the edges. The market remains still within it. A space without movement. A space without sound. A space held quietly between darkness and the first arrival of light. And in that stillness, the night waits, not ending all at once, but slowly giving way to what comes next. The night now feels lighter, though it has not fully left. It still surrounds the market, still rests above it, but its weight has softened. The darkness is no longer deep and complete. It has begun to thin in slow, quiet layers, especially near the horizon where something unseen seems to be approaching. The market remains unchanged. It holds its stillness without resistance. There is no movement across the ground, no presence within the space. Only the quiet structure of what was left behind, resting beneath the wide sky. The air is calm. It carries a coolness that feels balanced, neither sharp nor warm. It belongs to both the end of night and the beginning of something else, though neither is fully present yet. The breeze passes again. It is gentle, almost careful in its movement. It crosses the open space without disturbing anything, touching nothing, changing nothing. It simply moves through, then fades. Above, the stars remain. But they feel quieter now. Not dimmer in any sudden way, but less defined as the sky around them continues to lighten very slowly. Their presence is still steady, still distant, but less dominant against the softening darkness. The horizon grows slightly clearer. A faint sense of separation appears between sky and land, as though the world is slowly regaining shape after a long, quiet stillness. The market rests within this change. It does not react. It does not shift. It simply exists as part of the transition, held gently between night and dawn. Time continues forward without sound. There is no marker of its passing. Only the steady, almost unnoticeable movement from one state into another. The ground remains undisturbed. No new impressions form. No old ones return. Everything that happened here has already dissolved into the surface, leaving only calm behind. A distant sound briefly appears again. It is so faint it barely feels real. It rises for a moment, then disappears into the silence without leaving a trace. The quiet returns fully. The sky continues its slow transformation. The darkness is still present, but it no longer feels complete. It is becoming softer, less absolute, as if something beneath it is gently pushing upward. The market remains still. There is nothing within it that moves or changes. Only the sense that time is continuing beyond it, carrying the night forward toward its final edge. The breeze comes once more. It is the softest it has been. It moves like a memory of air rather than air itself, passing through the empty space without sound or resistance. It fades quickly. The sky grows lighter again along the horizon. Not enough to call it morning, but enough to suggest that night is nearing its quiet end. The stars are still visible. Yet they now feel more distant than before, not in placement, but in presence. The sky around them is no longer fully dark. The market remains in perfect stillness. No change touches it. No movement returns. It rests in the final moments of night, where everything is calm, and everything is waiting. The horizon continues to soften. A faint suggestion of light begins to gather there, subtle and quiet, as if the world is preparing to begin again. The night does not leave suddenly. It simply becomes lighter, thinner, until it is no longer fully separate from what comes next. The market holds this moment without breaking it. It remains still. It remains quiet. And it waits, gently, for the first breath of dawn that is just about to arrive. The sky changes now in a way that is almost impossible to notice at first. It does not brighten all at once. It simply begins to soften, as if the night is slowly loosening its grip on the world. The darkness is still present, but it no longer feels complete. It feels stretched, gently thinned, like fabric worn softly over time. The market remains still. It has not moved through the night. It has not shifted or changed. It rests exactly where the day once unfolded and where the night has since passed over it. Now, it waits beneath the first quiet hint of morning. The horizon grows a little clearer. A faint band of lighter tone appears there, so subtle it almost seems imagined. It is not yet color in the way daylight is known. It is only the suggestion of change, a softening of the boundary between earth and sky. The stars remain visible above. But their presence is quieter now. Not fading suddenly, not disappearing, but becoming less distinct as the sky around them continues to open. They feel farther away, not in distance, but in contrast. The air is calm. It carries the final stillness of night, the kind that comes just before everything begins again. It does not move much. It does not shift quickly. It simply exists in a state of quiet balance. The breeze returns once more. It is barely more than a touch. It moves across the empty market, passing over the ground, over the places where life once gathered, over the quiet outlines of what remains. It does not disturb anything. It only passes through. The ground itself feels unchanged, yet slightly more visible now as the darkness begins to loosen. Its surface, once hidden in deeper shadow, slowly returns in subtle detail. Stillness remains complete. But it is no longer the stillness of deep night. It is the stillness of something about to begin. The horizon brightens again, just slightly. A soft, pale tone spreads outward, not yet light, but no longer darkness. It is a quiet in-between space where the world seems to hold its breath. The market stands within this transition. It does not respond. It does not awaken. It simply remains as it is, part of the earth beneath a changing sky. Time continues forward. Unmarked. Unspoken. The stars begin to feel less present now, though they still remain. The sky around them has grown lighter, gently reducing their contrast. They are still there. Still steady. But now they feel like they belong more to memory than to night itself. The breeze moves again. Soft. Barely noticeable. It crosses the space once more, then fades into stillness without leaving anything behind. The horizon continues to lighten. The change is slow, but steady now. No longer uncertain. No longer only a suggestion. The first hint of dawn is approaching, though it has not fully arrived. The market remains unchanged. It holds this moment without interruption. A place once filled with movement, now resting in absolute quiet as night and morning meet in the softest way possible. And in this final stillness, just before the first true light of day appears, everything waits. The horizon brightens a little more. Not suddenly. Not sharply. But in a slow, steady unfolding that feels as natural as breathing. The darkness does not vanish, it simply begins to loosen, fading into softer and softer shades that no longer feel fully like night. The market remains still. It has not changed through the night, and it does not change now. It rests in the same quiet arrangement, as if holding the memory of the day that came before and the silence that followed. But now, the world around it begins to awaken. A faint glow spreads along the edge of the sky. It is pale at first, almost colorless, like light remembering itself before fully appearing. It touches the horizon gently, spreading outward in a calm, even way. The stars are still there. But they are quieter now. Their presence feels more distant, not because they have moved, but because the sky around them is becoming brighter, slowly taking back the space they once defined. The air begins to shift. Not in temperature, but in feeling. It carries the first hint of morning, subtle and clean, as though the world is preparing itself for a new beginning without any rush. The breeze returns once more. Softer than before. It moves through the empty market, passing over the ground, over the faint outlines left by time, over the quiet stillness that has held everything through the night. It does not linger. It simply moves and disappears. The ground becomes slightly more visible. Shapes begin to separate from shadow. The uneven texture of the earth returns in gentle detail. Everything remains still, but now it can be seen more clearly. The darkness continues to fade. Not all at once. Not in any sharp line. But in slow layers that lift gently away from the land. The market is still the market. But it feels different now under this returning light. Not active. Not alive with movement. Just present. Waiting. The horizon brightens further. A soft, pale gold begins to form, subtle at first, then slowly deepening. It does not spread quickly. It grows patiently, as though the world is taking its time to remember daylight. The stars begin to disappear one by one. Not fading dramatically. Just becoming less visible as the sky around them fills with light. Their presence softens until they are no longer the focus of the sky. The silence remains. But it feels slightly changed now. Not heavier. Not lighter. Just different, as if it has turned a page without making a sound. The market remains unchanged. Still. Quiet. Whole in its emptiness. The first real suggestion of dawn arrives now. A soft glow that touches the ground more directly, beginning to define edges, shapes, and spaces that were hidden in night. It does not wake the market. It simply reveals it. The earth, the open space, the faint marks of what once was, all slowly come back into view under the growing light. The night does not end suddenly. It dissolves gently, like something that has finished resting. And in its place, dawn begins to settle. Not fully formed yet, but present. Quiet. Steady. The market remains in this transition, neither belonging to night nor fully to morning. It simply exists beneath the returning light. The light of dawn finally settles over the land. It does not arrive loudly. It does not arrive all at once. It spreads slowly, like a gentle unfolding, filling the space where night once rested. The sky grows clearer now, taking on a soft, pale gold that stretches evenly across the horizon. The market is fully visible again. Not alive with movement. Not filled with people. But revealed in quiet detail under the returning day. The ground shows its full texture once more. The faint impressions of the previous day are nearly gone, softened beyond recognition. Only the earth remains, steady and unchanged, as it always has been. The air feels different now. Still calm, still gentle, but lighter. It carries the first clean breath of morning, free from the depth of night. There is no heat yet, only softness. The breeze moves again. It is slightly warmer than before, but still delicate in its touch. It passes across the empty market, touching nothing with force, only presence. It does not stay. It never stays. The sky continues to brighten. The stars are gone now, no longer visible in the growing light. Their presence has fully faded into the morning, leaving only the wide openness of sky above. The market remains unchanged. It does not awaken. It does not move. It simply rests under the morning light, as though waiting for something that has not yet returned. Time continues forward. Not marked by sound or action. Only by light. The sun is not fully visible yet, but its presence is felt more strongly now. The warmth begins to gather gently in the air, though it is still soft and distant. Shadows begin to form again. Faint at first. Then slowly more defined. They stretch across the ground in long, quiet shapes, reconnecting the space with the rhythm of daylight. The market holds its stillness. But now it is a stillness under morning. Different from night. Different from evening. It is a stillness that feels open, as if ready to receive movement again, even though none has arrived yet. The breeze passes once more. A little more present now. It moves over the earth, over the open space, over the quiet outlines of where life once gathered. And then it fades. The horizon grows brighter still. A soft glow spreads outward, gently increasing in strength. The sky begins to take on a clearer tone, shifting from pale gold toward something more fully illuminated. The sun is near, though not yet fully risen. The market remains in its quiet state. No figures return. No footsteps enter. Only the steady presence of the place itself beneath the awakening sky. The ground is fully visible now. Clear. Still. Resting. Every trace of night has dissolved completely. The transition is complete. Night has passed. Dawn has arrived. And morning now holds the land in its calm, growing light. The market remains unchanged within it. Quiet. Empty. Whole. And waiting, the morning light strengthens little by little. It is no longer only a suggestion along the horizon. It spreads more evenly now, filling the open space where the market rests. The sky grows clearer, taking on a soft, steady brightness that feels calm rather than sharp. The sun is still not fully visible, but its presence is everywhere. It is in the warming air, in the lengthening shadows, in the quiet return of detail across the ground. The market remains still. It does not change with the rising light. It simply becomes more visible, as though the morning is gently revealing what was already there. The earth looks familiar again. Soft dust, faint unevenness, the subtle memory of many steps, all of it returns under the clearer light. Nothing moves across it. Nothing disturbs it. It remains as it is. The air warms slightly. Not quickly. Not noticeably at first. But enough that the stillness feels less like night and more like early day. The breeze returns, carrying this change with it. It moves across the open space, brushing over the ground with a gentle, steady rhythm. It does not lift anything. It does not scatter anything. It simply moves through and continues on. The sky continues to brighten. The pale gold deepens into a clearer morning tone. The light becomes more direct, though still soft. It rests across the ground in wide, even layers. The market holds its silence. It is no longer the silence of night. It is the silence of morning before movement begins. A quiet pause between what has ended and what has not yet started again. Shadows grow more defined. They stretch across the ground in long, soft shapes that shift slowly as the sun continues to rise beyond the horizon. They mark the space gently, without breaking its stillness. There are no people present. No voices. No movement. Only the place itself, fully returned to daylight. The breeze moves again. A little warmer now. It passes through the empty market with the same calm rhythm, touching nothing, changing nothing, simply moving as it always has. Then it fades. The sky grows brighter still. The light now reaches further into the space, revealing more detail in the earth, more clarity in the edges of the ground, more depth in the openness of the place. The sun is close now. Not yet fully above the horizon, but near enough that the world feels gently awakened. The market remains unchanged. Still empty. Still quiet. But now fully part of the morning. The silence is different here. It is no longer heavy or deep. It is light, open, and steady, like a space waiting for something that may or may not return. The horizon glows with steady warmth. The first full presence of daylight begins to settle across the land. And the market rests beneath it, unchanged, calm, and complete in its stillness. The sun finally rises fully above the horizon. It does not burst into the sky. It appears slowly, as if easing itself into place. The light spreads outward in calm layers, reaching across the land, touching the empty market with steady warmth. Now everything is clearly visible. The ground, the open space, the faint traces of where life once moved through, everything is revealed under the soft strength of morning light. The market remains empty. But it no longer feels hidden or distant. It feels present in a different way now, held fully in the openness of day. The air is warmer. Not hot. Just gently warmed by the presence of the sun. It carries a clean stillness, the kind that belongs to early morning before activity begins. The breeze passes again. It moves lightly across the space, stirring nothing, lifting nothing, simply crossing from one side to the other before fading into the distance. The shadows shorten slightly. They are no longer long and stretched like they were at dawn. They gather closer to the ground now, becoming softer, more defined, yet calm. The market shows no movement. No return of people. No rebuilding of activity. Only the space itself remains, steady under the morning sun. Time continues forward. But here, it feels unmarked. The sun moves higher, slowly, without urgency. Its light becomes more even, filling every part of the open ground with quiet clarity. The earth appears warm and still. It holds no memory that can be seen, only the gentle impression of what has passed, now fully blended into the surface. The air remains calm. There is no sound except the faint, distant presence of the wider world beyond the market, too far to be clear, too soft to define. The breeze returns once more. It is slightly warmer now, carrying the full arrival of morning within it. It passes through the space gently, then disappears again. The market remains unchanged. Not waiting in tension. Not expecting anything. Just resting in the open light of day. The sun continues its steady rise. Light now fills the entire space evenly. There are no longer deep shadows or dim corners. Everything is softly illuminated. The ground feels stable. Complete. Quiet in a way that is no longer about absence, but about rest. The market stands like this under the morning sky, an open place that once held movement, now holding only light and stillness. And as the day continues forward, it does so without interruption, carrying the world gently onward. The morning settles fully now. The sun has risen into its steady place in the sky, and its light rests across the land with calm certainty. It no longer feels like arrival. It feels like continuation, as if the day has simply taken its place in a long, unbroken cycle. The market remains empty. Not forgotten. Not lost. Just quietly present beneath the wide morning sky. The ground is warm now where the sun touches it. Soft shadows lie close to the earth, no longer stretching far, no longer holding the shapes they once did during night and dawn. Everything feels open. Still. Complete. The breeze passes through one final time. It moves gently across the space, touching the earth, passing over the quiet outlines of what once was, then drifting away without sound. It does not return again. The market does not change. It does not need to. It simply exists in its resting state, held beneath the steady rhythm of the day. Above, the sky is clear. Below, the earth is calm. Between them, the empty market remains, no longer a place of movement, but a place of memory held softly in light. Time continues forward. But here, it feels unhurried. Like everything has already taken its turn, and now only stillness remains. The sun continues its slow journey across the sky. The light shifts slightly, but nothing in the market responds. It remains as it is, quiet, open, and undisturbed. There is no ending in a sudden way. No final moment. Only a gradual softening of attention, as if the world itself is no longer focused on this place, but gently moving on. And yet, the market remains. Not as it was in the busy hours of the past. Not as it was in the silence of night. But as something in between. A quiet space that held life, and now holds its absence without sorrow. The air stays warm. The light stays steady. The ground stays still. And slowly, without anything changing at all, the sense of the market begins to fade, not by disappearing, but by becoming part of everything else around it. Like a memory that does not leave, only becomes quieter. And in that quiet, the day continues. Soft. Endless. And calm.